All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Fideli from First 5 Marin Children and Families Commission, and this is the Marin Communications Forum. We're very glad to have you all join us today to talk about Census 2020 with a specific emphasis on counting children and families. We're looking for a complete count in Marin, and we appreciate you being part of the process. We have a lot of information for you today, a lot of handouts for you to take and distribute in the community, and a special focus also on outreach to the Latino community and the Spanish language community. So we'll just get started, and I'd like to welcome Stephanie McNally from Canal Alliance.
Will you advance me? Welcome, everyone. Again, my name is Stephanie McNally, and I was just joking a little earlier. I've been working on the census since 2018 over at Canal Alliance, and we started working with the county in July of last year. Community Action Marin and Canal Alliance in partnership have been doing countywide outreach. So today I'm going to give you a presentation on the census, but really more focused. For those of you who've probably may have heard this presentation before, this one will be a little more focused on children 0 to 5. So just to give an overview, for those of you who haven't seen this presentation before, the census is the cornerstone of our democracy. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution that we count everyone living in the United States every 10 years. Originally, we did this for political representation. The House of Representatives has representatives based on the population of each state. Over time, not only do we use it for representation, but also funding. Federal funding, over $800 billion, is allocated by census data. That's why it's so vital, especially for the communities in which we all serve. And finally, the data. So the Census Bureau has really become, if you've ever gone to their website, they are the gold standard of data. Every organization uses it for policy making, decision making, businesses use it, it's used to enforce laws. So that data is really important, and when we undercount certain populations in our communities, we're leaving these people out not only from representation, but also from funding and also for our ability to serve them if we don't know that they are there and we don't have that data to support them. So the Census Bureau noticed over time, every 10 years, that the response rate was declining for the census, and they wanted to learn more, especially with 2020 coming up. So they actually did a very in-depth study that was released in a couple of studies actually released in 2018, and they identified 4 barriers to response. The first one is fear and lack of trust. So there are people who, and this is not just happening today, but has been happening for a long time, people just don't trust the government for lots of different reasons, or they're fearful about sharing their information. The second barrier to response is that this year, for the first time, the census will be done online. Now, there'll still be the ability to do it on paper, in a paper form, or by phone, but the Census Bureau is really encouraging everyone out the gate to go on their computers, on their cell phones, on their tablets to do their census. And while this could be great for some populations, younger people who are more accustomed to using technology, it can also be a barrier in communities where there's issues with broadband access, or in older communities where people just aren't as comfortable with technology. The third barrier to response is confidentiality and privacy concerns. So people are concerned about what the government is going to do with their personal information. And because this is our first online census, people are also worried about cybersecurity. So it's kind of, two concerns in one there. And I will cover this, but basically all data collected for the census is confidential. It is not shared with anyone. And I'll go into some detail on that. And that's a really important message to get out to all the individuals and families that you work with. And then finally, apathy. A lot of people just don't understand that first slide, how much federal funding comes to this state or to this county based on having an accurate count. And that, to me, is the easiest message to deliver, which is, what is the benefit to your community, to your family, if you're counted? Or if you're not counted, what are you losing? What are you leaving on the table? So here's where I start a little bit deeper dive into children. So thanks to First 5, because I've got some great data from them here. Young children by far had the highest net undercount of any age group in the 2010 census. So of all the historically undercounted groups, and I will show you a list of that shortly, children 0 to 5 were the most undercounted. And if you think about the federal programs that support children and families, that's a huge hit to this group. The second most missed group, children ages 5 to 9. So we're not counting our kids accurately for lots of reasons, but it's really important to change that narrative and that trend. And then finally, the number of children missed in the decennial census count has been growing steadily for 40 years. So the undercount we see now, the expectation is it's going to be greater for children. We want to change that trend in 2020. So here's a list of historically undercounted communities. The definition of a hard-to-count community is a population that may be hard to identify, hard to reach, hard to persuade, hard to interview, perhaps some of these, perhaps all of the above. And I imagine all of you in this room can think of individuals or families that you work with that fall into this category. So I've got children 0 to 5 at the top, but then these are all the other groups that we're doing outreach for in Marin County. So ethnic groups, immigrants, farm workers, homeless individuals or people in non-conventional housing, veterans and older adults, people with disabilities, households with limited English proficiency, and renters. So these are our focus areas here in Marin County. So I talked a little bit about how census data is used, but I really want to make these points because an accurate count impacts all of these things in such a dramatic way here in Marin County. First of all, federal funding, and I'll show you a slide in a bit, but we're leaving a lot of federal funding money on the table when we undercount. Reapportionment and redistricting. So I kind of talked about the House of Representatives. Actually, this census data will be used to redistrict at every level of government in 2021. So that's school boards, city councils, County Board of Supervisors, and so this data is really important in terms of redistricting. So it's going to have this huge impact next year. And this process only happens every 10 years based on an accurate count. Civil rights enforcement. So the Voting Rights Act uses census data for enforcement. Policy making and planning. So governments, nonprofits, private sector, they all use this for policy making, planning, and business decision making. So all sorts of organizations use that gold standard of data from the Census Bureau to do their planning and policy making. And we don't want that policy to be skewed because we don't have an accurate count here in the county. So another great slide I stole from First Five. Federal funding impacts. So the amount of federal funding the state receives annually for programs that affect kids. So you can see the different programs here and the different amounts and the total, $75 billion in federal funding at stake. So this is a lot of funding for programs that I'm sure all of you are impacted by and the families, the children that you serve are impacted by. And this really is a very strong message, especially to those who are reluctant to participate, right? They don't understand how the census is going to impact them. So a little more detail on this. Why does the census matter in Marin? So I actually took data from 2010, the undercount, and projected it. So if we had the same undercount of children here in the county, we could be leaving almost $80 million on the table. So the state of California has determined that for each person missed in the 2020 census, that's $1,000 in federal funding per person per year, right? And I just took the number of children from the last census and the undercount. So we could be leaving almost $80 million in federal funding for those children's programs over 10 years. So a little more information. In 2010, about 5% of children under age 5 were not counted. That was approximately 1 million kids nationwide. And if we're following the trend that I showed you earlier, that it keeps going, the undercount keeps going up, we're looking at an even higher one if we don't really encourage families who might participate in the census but might forget to count their kids. That it's really important to count everybody in the household. California has the highest rate of undercount for young children in the entire country. Children of color had higher rates of undercount than white children. And experts estimate that about 6.5% of young African American and Latino children were overlooked by the 2010 census, which is roughly twice the rate of young non-Latino white children. So not only are we really focused on counting children, but also children that are part of some of those other hard-to-count groups, right? Immigrants, Latinos, African Americans, homes with limited English, right? So when you looked at that list, children kind of are part of the list, but they fall under all those other categories as well. So some of the undercount risks that have been identified, I mentioned one already. Collection will be mostly digital, and some low-income communities lack access to the internet. So that might be one barrier to response for children 0 to 5. Though there will be no citizenship question on the 2020 census, there is still a lot of uncertainty around sharing your information. People are still really concerned, and I will give you some details in a moment about the laws protecting the confidentiality of census data. But this is a really important message to share with everyone, because all of you in this room are trusted messengers. And the message is there's no citizenship question, and that your data is protected. And the Census Bureau has been challenged with fewer resources in terms of outreach, less than they had back in 2010. So what are some of the reasons children aren't being counted? Lack of participation due to fear of data being shared, especially in immigrant communities. Confusion over whether certain kids should be counted. For example, kids who have split custody, newborns, yes, you count your newborns. If they're born by April 1st, they count. Kids living in a household who aren't related to the parents, so kids who are living with aunts, uncles, grandparents. If most of the time they spend is in that household, they should be counted in that household. And then lack of participation in the census due to the belief it will take too long and won't benefit the people taking it. So in the past, the census was a longer form. It is the short form. It's 10 questions, and it doesn't take long. Unless you have a huge household, it might take you a little more time. And really, again, messaging the benefit to the people who are participating, right? So the federal funding, the programs, for some families it might be about representation. You have to think about your audience when you're, giving that message. What's going to resonate with them to get them to participate? Okay, so just a little more detail on the impact of counting all young children. Targeted funding for Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP, shown to improve children's health, educational outcomes, and economic success as adults. Think about this. You're counting them now, and this is impacting them for 10 years of their lives. So for a child who's anywhere from 0 to 9, right, that highly undercounted group, that's a very impactful period of their lives. Right? And so you really think about this. If we miss them now, we don't count them again for 10 years, and they might not even be a child anymore at that point. They might be a young adult. So except for our 0 to 5s, right? 10 years, they'll still be children. But it's really important to kind of put into perspective when you miss a child what that means. That's 10 years of data, resources that aren't going to be there for them as they're growing up. Head Start expansions for schools in low-income areas, that's impactful. Special education allocated more equitably to the places where it's needed most. So the accurate count is about equity too, not just about the funding, but about where the funding goes. If we don't know that there's an area, community in need, then we can't target those funds. So it's not just about getting the funding to Marin, but making sure it goes to the places that need it the most. And then finally, equitable allocation of funding for programs that children rely on. So Women, Infant, and Children WIC, supplemental nutrition, Section 8 housing, low-income home energy assistance program, and community health centers. So when you're talking to people and trying to encourage them, motivate them to participate in the census, these are all the things. You don't even necessarily need to talk about dollars, billions of dollars. You can just talk about the programs that they are using to support their families and how that will be impacted if there isn't an accurate count. So you don't necessarily need to talk about billions of dollars. You can just talk about programs. So a little bit about what you need to know about the census. So these are questions that people will ask you, questions you might actually have yourselves right now. So the first thing I want to share is the census timeline. This is pulled straight from the Census Bureau's website. So you will actually start receiving something at your mailing address the week of March 12th to the 20th. It's an invitation to participate. Most people in Marin County, again, will receive it at their mailing address, not a P.O. box, so I'll cover that in a moment. Mailing address. It will predominantly be in English, although there are 2 census tracts in Marin County in the Canal who will receive information in English and in Spanish in the mail. And you'll really be asked to respond online. You won't receive a paper form. You will receive information about phone numbers you can call to get help or to do your census by phone. So at that point, you'll have at least 2 ways to respond by phone or online. March 6th to the 24th, you'll get a reminder letter. Everyone will receive that. If you haven't responded to the census yet, the first week of April, really, you'll receive a reminder postcard. So officially, everyone says Census Day is April 1st. That's the day you have in mind when you're doing your count. So for example, if the baby's born by April 1st, you count them. But actually, you're taking the census, so you have a chance to self-respond for a 6-week window from mid-March to the end of April. So you really have 6 weeks to respond, online, by phone, or by paper. So the next mailing, April 8th to the 16th, not only will you get a reminder letter, but if you haven't yet participated, you will receive a paper form. And there are people who are more comfortable responding on paper. They just have to wait for it to arrive. The Census Bureau will not send it to you. We won't have any of those available for people. You'll have to wait till it comes to you. So the other key message for everyone you're talking to is hang on to everything the Census Bureau mails to you. There will be people, there will be places where you can get help. So hang on to everything that comes from the Census Bureau, even if you're not sure what to do with it. Bring it to Canal Alliance, Community Action Marin. Bring it to some of our questionnaire assistance centers, your public libraries, and people will help you. And then your final reminder postcard will come from the Census Bureau the last week of April. And after that reminder, they will begin what's called the non-response follow-up period, May, June, and July. That's when the census takers, those happy people on Joan's flyer, are going to come knocking on your door and help you respond. And there are some people who might actually want to respond that way. They might prefer to sit down with a census taker. So there's really 4 ways to complete your census: online, by phone, on paper, or with a census taker. You just won't have the opportunity to work with a census taker until May, June, and July. That's when the census takers will be knocking on doors. All right, I keep teeing this up. Confidentiality responses, really, really important. There are extremely strong laws in place to protect the confidentiality of your census response. Title 13, don't need to memorize that, but Title 13 is a federal statute that has existed for decades. With harsh consequences for people who violate census confidentiality. This was put into place after Japanese internment because they used that data to intern those families, and they never wanted that to happen again. So that's why this is in place. So everyone who works for the Census Bureau takes a lifelong oath. Right, Sonny? Yes. Even when Sonny's not working for the census anymore, he's still going to be bound by this oath. If you have wrongful disclosure, you can have up to a $250,000 fine and or 5 years in prison. So they're really serious about that. You cannot share personal information, census information, with anyone outside of the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau is not allowed to share your personal information with anyone, including ICE, police, law enforcement, landlords. I know there's a huge concern about being evicted because you have more people maybe living in your mailing address than you should. We really want to count those people. Landlords have no access to this information. And any government agency. So there isn't a single government agency. Now, Title 13 cannot be overturned by executive order. It has to go through the Senate and the House. So Trump can't change this between now and the time all that data is collected, right? So real quick, census questions, just so you have an idea of what gets asked if you're not familiar. On our website, marincensus2020.org, we will actually have images of the paper form, what the screens will look like when you do it online, so you'll have access to all that. But the questions are pretty straightforward. The number of people living in your housing unit, additional persons staying with you on April 1st. So if you have someone staying with you for several months or couch surfing or whatever, they count. If you're an owner or a renter. And your telephone number. So this first set of data is you answer that once. The second column you answer for each person in the household. So if you have a larger household, it might take you a few more minutes than someone who just has 1 or 2 people. The name of each person, their gender, their age, and birth date, Hispanic origin, and that's self-reported, how you see yourself, and the race of each person. So that's all. It's a short questionnaire. It will not take a lot of time. That's the information they're collecting. Help to answer the census. So you can get help from the Census Bureau. They provide questionnaire assistance. They will help you with anything. They also allow you to complete the whole census over the phone with them in multiple languages. We are also setting up questionnaire assistance centers and kiosks throughout the county. So a questionnaire assistance center is a place where you can come and get help. There'll be computers, some will have phones, and people will be able to sit down, they're staffed to help you. A questionnaire assistance kiosk is where you can just walk up to a computer and complete your census. We will have kiosks in every public library in the county, so anyone can walk into a public library and complete their census. We will have questionnaire assistance centers throughout the county. We're planning those out right now, and those will be available on our website. So there'll be several of them in the Canal, in West Marin, and Marin City, throughout the county. So you'll have plenty of ways to get help. So again, when I said earlier, let people know to keep everything that's mailed to them from the Census Bureau. There will be places where they can get help. We're also looking to leverage the bookmobiles and the Learning Center. So we have mobile units that will hit places that might not normally, have a spot where someone can get some assistance. So we're really trying to cover the county, especially the areas that are so remote, as best as we can. And I want to follow up real quick. P.O. Box. If you have a P.O. Box, your information will be hand-delivered, not mailed to you because you don't have a mailing address. What we're working on in the parts of the county where we have P.O. boxes is doing a lot of education ahead of time so people know when it's going to start. And you can go online as of March 12th, even if you haven't received anything in the mail or anything hand-delivered, and participate in the census. So we're letting people know to be more proactive, that they can go to the library, get on the computer and do it whether they've received something or not. And that's what the outreach we're doing out in those areas that have P.O. boxes, just in case things don't get to them in a timely manner. So I mentioned the census is in multiple languages. So by internet, 12 languages. So when you're online, you have access to at least 12 languages. By phone, 13 languages. And then by paper, unfortunately, only English and Spanish. So if you know someone who would be more interested in participating on paper, let them know it's only in English and Spanish. We will have language guides provided by the Census Bureau, but really the focus on those is just those two languages. So we're really trying to route people to online or phone because there's so many more languages available to them. So as I mentioned, the Census Bureau is going to have language guides, glossaries, so 59 non-English languages, including American Sign Language, Braille, and large print. We will have that information at every questionnaire assistance center and kiosk available for people to use that. And then census takers, so people knocking on your door. Right now, I think it's just English and Spanish, is my understanding. So again, just keep that in mind. Just like the paper one, it's only 2 languages in the county. So how do you stay in touch with us? How do you get information? So one of the things we've worked on in partnership with United Way Bay Area is a text campaign that is in multiple languages. And basically, we haven't started yet. We've gotten people signed up, but we haven't started sending messages yet. But as we get closer to the census, we will send messages in different languages, letting people know what's coming, what's happening. Specifically for Marin County, we have the ability to send out messages about where questionnaire assistance centers are. And one of the questions we ask is your zip code. So one thing we have the capability to do is by zip code, send out a message and say, here are the questionnaire assistance centers in your area. So this is a really great way for us to push information out to everyone. Not just everyone in this room, but anyone else who is engaged in doing census outreach work. So the number is 415-338-9887. And depending on which word you text, that's the language you'll receive messaging in. So if you type in censo, all your messages will come in Spanish. Unfortunately, I cannot speak any of the languages, so that's about as far as that one's going to go. But you get the idea. We also have this information on our website, but this is one way where we can sort of, rather than wait for people to come to our website or happen to see a poster or something, this is a way for us to send information out. And hopefully all of you will utilize this text campaign. It's on a secure server with United Way Bay Area, and when the census is over, they're going to wipe the data. So this is purely, if you sign up for this, it's just for the census, and it's just for the census period. Probably through the end of July, because we'll want to keep people up to date during non-response follow-up. But really, it's just for a limited period of time and for one purpose only. So I just threw a few resources up here, and these are also available on our website. Marin First 5 Association has a lot of great resources on their website. Count All Kids Census 2020 has also been a great resource for us here in the county. Hazme Contar, this is Naleo's, so it's all in Spanish. You can get Spanish materials. And then we also have a lot of resources on our website. The good news about the census is everybody is out there producing webinars and resources, and it's amazing. But if you go out there and do a search, it's overwhelming. So what we've tried to do on the Marin Census 2020.org site is kind of curate it, so when you get there, you can get very targeted information. Get routed to the right websites, or we've actually got flyers, so some of the great flyers from the Census Bureau you can download directly from our website. So we're really trying to make it a hub for you and a place where you don't have to do too much sifting through information to find what you need. And then, of course, if you can't find what you need, you can always contact me, and I can get a hold of it for you. So I want to thank you all for your attention this morning, and remind you we have our website, marincensus2020.org. We have a great couple of panels for you guys today, and a lot of materials out there, and bags in which to put all your materials and carry them off. So please take posters, flyers, stickers, whatever we have out there. We really want all of you to go out there and talk about how important the census is to the communities you're working in, because it really will impact them profoundly. And we want everyone to understand that and to participate. And we want to do as much as we can to manage that fear, because we know there's a lot of fear out there. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Stephanie. That was the whole forum in 15 minutes. But I'm not going to let you go. So we're going to continue on and delve a little deeper into the programs that are funded. Can I invite my panelists to come on up? We just want to hear specifically from some programs about how important the funding is. So we have Karen Allen from Marin County Office of Education, Lorenzo Cordova from Supervisor Rodoni's office, Jennifer Jaime from Community Action Marin, Sunny Lee from the Census Bureau, and Jacqueline Mendez from Marin Housing Authority. And because of unique arrangements today, since you're not on a riser, I'm going to pass out microphones to you, and I just ask if you could stand up when it's your turn to talk, and that way we can get you on video. And Lorenzo, do you want to say hello first?
Sure. So good morning, everyone. Like I said a little bit earlier, my name is Lorenzo Cordova, and I work for Supervisor Dennis Rodoni, who, alongside Supervisor Kate Sears, the supervisor for Southern Marin, he is the co-chair of the Marin Complete Count Committee, so the larger coalition of key stakeholders tasked with amplifying the importance of the U.S. Census. And on behalf of his office, I've been super active in our Marin Census 2020 efforts, and I'm here to speak to you on the higher level as to why the census is important for the funding that we receive. The County of Marin is a business. We are in the service of giving people the services that they need, making sure our children are taken care of, making sure that our roads are being paved, making sure that we are building enough units to house our people. And the census is vitally important for us to be able to do just that. The supervisors are constantly making funding decisions that affect the lives of our children. And in order for us to continue to do that, for the supervisors to continue to lead in the best interests of children, they need the data that comes from the census. So that's why I'm here. I'm very happy to answer any of the questions that you might have. Thank you for having us here, and I look forward to giving you any information that you may need.
Did you want us to just introduce ourselves and just take turns? And okay. I guess since I'm talking, I'll go ahead and continue. Jennifer Jaime, I'm the Vice President of Development for Community Action Marin. And the reason that I ended up working on the census for our organization is because I worked on writing grant applications and developed a deep understanding of both the importance of the census, what different organizations wanted to do to make sure hard-to-count populations were included. And I guess I'm going to give you a little soundbite about Community Action Marin. How many people have heard of Community Action Marin before? Oh, good. All right. So as you may know, we are the lead agency in all the Head Start programs in the county. We are the largest provider of subsidized early childhood education in the county. So in particular, we're really interested in making sure that all of our families get counted. We also have a branch of services for mental health. We also run a Spark Point program for economic opportunity, and we also have a care homeless outreach team. So a number of the people that we serve over 5,000 people a year, and they really mostly fall into all of those hard to count populations. And I guess the only thing that I'll add to Stephanie's great presentation was the couple of things that we figured out we're gonna do. So we all know it's important, right? We all know we want our people to be counted, so what do we actually do to make that happen? Couple of the things that we're doing that I share in case you want to steal and use these ideas. We're sending, really simple old school approach, we're sending a letter home to all of the people that we serve. Basically summarizing the information that Stephanie gave you, but saying from us, you know that we look out for you, we care for the people that we serve, and this is really important. And here's what you should know about it. Another thing that we're doing is we are setting up questionnaire assistance centers. 3 of them at our early childhood education sites during pickup times when parents are coming to pick up the kids. So they will be able to, and we're doing this from March 16th through at least May 15th, possibly longer. And when parents come to pick up their kids, like one day a week, they'll come in one week and then they'll get the information and they'll think about it and they won't respond. And then they'll come in the next week and they'll see the table again. And then they'll come in the next week and we'll have some giveaways. And eventually they'll be able to come and just stop for 10 minutes and do their census right there. So, and one of the ways that we're managing to do that, because when we sat down to figure out how are we going to orchestrate these, we're all full-time staff trying to do this work sort of off the side of our desks. So how are we going to orchestrate all these questionnaire assistance centers? We cobbled together some stipend money to hire parents as questionnaire assistance center coordinators, and we're just paying them a stipend of $600 each for that, coordinating those questionnaire assistance centers for those 2 months. And they are recruiting parents from their communities and helping for the questionnaire assistance centers to be a more organic, community-based type of effort. So that's another thing that we're doing. And and also at Community Action Marin, our headquarters is at 555 Northgate. It's across from Northgate Mall. And we will have a questionnaire assistance center there at least every Friday, more if we can do it. And we are looking for organizations to kind of own a day at the Questionnaire Assistance Center. So if you would like to have sort of a turnkey partnership where you come up and maybe support the Questionnaire Assistance Center on Thursdays at our office, we'll have it all set up for you. You just provide some volunteers. We're looking to do it for more than 1 day a week. Right now we know we can staff 1 day a week. So those are the sort of the main things that we are doing to try to get the word out about the census. Stephanie, anything else you would add? Okay. Oh. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Allen. I am from the Marin County Office of Education. I'm a program manager there. And I am excited to be part of this whole effort. I was along the way, got to meet Stephanie, and she and I are trying to partner up as much as possible to work together. And I know that Fernando's working as well with the Center Fell City schools. And we're really trying to make sure that the schools are supported so that they then can work with their families and their children to get the word out of how important the census is. At the Marin County Office of Education, our main goal is to provide our 18 school districts, as well as our charter schools, as well as our private schools here in Marin County, with as much assistance and support as they need. What we don't do is go into schools and sort of take over and give the message and let schools know that this is what you need to do, this is what you must be doing. That isn't the goal for Marin County Office of Education. It is more in line with supporting all of the districts and schools in whatever kind of ways that they need. I was brought into this work because another one of my roles at the county office is that I am the coordinator for foster and homeless youth services for the county. So I work with the 18 school districts, the non-public schools, also the few of our charter schools. I work with representatives from each of those places who take care of homeless and foster youth for their districts. So being that the census our work is really focusing on, of course, everybody participating, but in particular the hard to count populations, it seemed like a really easy fit for me to charge the effort for the county office. I've learned way more than I ever anticipated, and we've been able to pull together a lot of resources to offer to our schools and to our district partners. So I've created there's an online tool, it's called Padlet. If anyone has used it, or if you haven't used it, it's an excellent resource. It's free, you can create your own Padlet. I have several of them. And one of them is only on the census. And there is where we house all of our resources and tools. So if you go on to the marinschools.org website, sometime this week we're going to have a button there that you can access. It'll say Census 2020, and it will take you it'll give you a link to the Padlet, because really the Padlet is where we are housing all of our resources that are available to schools and districts. Some of the things that are on there are Dominican University is one of our partners, and the political science department is offering to have students come and speak to classrooms to educate the children and youth about the census. So there is a flyer about that. There are informational cards that can be sent to parents. There are offerings of posters. So there's a whole plethora of resources and tools that we're offering, and districts can get in touch with us and say, hey, can you provide us with 1,500 of those cards, and please deliver them to Hamilton Elementary School, and we will make sure that parents get them in their Friday folders. So we're trying to provide as much as we can and also give schools a way to say, hey, we can't really do this right now, but can you do it for us? So we will do anything that is needed from start to finish. So if a school needs a bunch of flyers to be able to distribute to students, we'll make the copies, I'll drive them over, we'll get them in the hands of the administrators on the campuses so that they can easily distribute to families. So it's one of the ways that we are trying to support and make it as easy as possible. We do believe that children and youth are the most trusted messengers that we have, especially in the lower grades and the younger kids. I myself have younger kids, and I know that I get most of my information from them. They come home and they just want to tell me every single thing that is going on their school campus, everything that happened in their classroom, everything that happened on the playground. So we know that giving them the information, empowering them to understand what the census is at every level. So there is pre-K curriculum all the way up to 12th grade curriculum. So we know that, a kindergartner might go home, they might not have the actual language, but one thing we put on the Padlet is there's this really catchy song that was just created. I can't even remember where I got it from, but I found it. It's in English and Spanish. I think it's great. It's easy. It repeats the same verse over and over. That might be something that the kid, I don't know it by heart, otherwise I would sing it right now.
Everyone counts in the U.S. of A. Everyone counts in their own special way. Porque todos nos cuentan en Estados Unidos. Todos nos cuentan y contamos unidos.
Thank you. Yeah. So I put that on the Padlet because I'm trying to think of it. Thank you that was wonderful. I put that on there because in trying to think of what are some of the ways that the younger kids who might not have the language to go home and explain to their parents, this is what the census is all about, that they might be able to sing the tune to them. So the other thing I just wanted to put in here as an educator and as somebody who is really involved in trauma-informed practices and trauma-informed instruction, we do a lot of trainings, and I'm very involved in it, being that I serve a certain population of students here in Marin County. is I just wanted to put out there that whenever you are speaking with someone about the census, especially if it is in a hard to count, hard to reach community, to keep in mind that these are people who are experiencing or have experienced trauma. Just for the fact that they are in a hard to reach community, and for the fact that they might be immigrants, they might be migrants, they might be somebody who really feels that their voice is not being heard, living in different parts of our county. And I would say the one tip that I would give to everyone who is trying to keep a trauma-informed brain is that when people are talking about how afraid they are of the census and they start talking about all the things that might happen, the best thing we can do is answer with validation. And not to respond saying, no, 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 that's really not the way it goes. I want to tell you how it goes. I want to tell you. That can come. You can give them information. But I think the very most important thing to do with a person who's experiencing trauma or has experienced trauma is to validate. So when they bring up things about, I know there's no citizenship question, but I know that they're going to find a way to get my information out there. The best thing you can do is to say, I understand. I understand your fear. And then to give some wait time. Because I think as educators especially, we are so ready to run in and give information and make sure that they feel okay. You know, our goal as parents and educators and grandparents and community members is to make people feel okay. But sometimes feeling okay just means, wow, that person's really hearing me, because this is a real fear of mine. So I just wanted to throw that out there as my tip as an educator, and I'm happy to answer any questions once everyone's done with introductions. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Jacqueline. I am from Marin Housing Authority from the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. We serve around 66,000 individuals for Section 8 voucher holders, as well as public housing and the elderly disabled. We have 5 complexes that we serve around 200 of them. So being counted for these populations, it's so important for funding. As well as we also have supportive services. We have the Shelter Plus Care program that is about 100 vouchers that have been given to chronically homeless individuals, as well as the program that I coordinate, which is the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. We have 150 families that are part of our program, and we help them with goal setting, employment. Also, it's an asset building program where families are able to save money through an escrow account that we open for them. The average increased income for the families is $28,000 a year. So it's a very successful program. We had this year about 4 families that were able to get out of public housing and from the Section 8 program, and because they have been able to become self-sufficient. And these are just some of the programs that will be affected if we don't have an accurate count. We also have the Section 8 home buyers, the Section 8 homeowners, homeowners buyers, which is families that are part of the Section 8 program are able to purchase their home, and the program works very similar with as the rental program is, except that we are helping families with their mortgages. For us to reach out to families and letting them know that this is being counted for the census is very important. We will be sending information with their rent statements starting next month and on April to let them know how important it is for them to be counted and for us to keep these programs. Thank you, and I'll answer any questions later.
Morning. Glad to be back in Marin County. So I shouldn't have left you for a few weeks there. Yes, we need all the help we can get from you all. So, my name is Sunny Lay, and I work for the U.S. Census Bureau. And Marin County has a place in my heart. I slept my first 2 nights in America in Novato at the Hamilton Airfield. Hamilton Airfield was decommissioned in 1970, early 70s, and it was turned into a refugee holding area. So all the refugees from Southeast Asia and all the places that were arriving in the 70s and late 70s and 80s, if they could not be processed overnight, then we would be housed at Hamilton Airfield. So that was my first taste of Thanksgiving dinner too. And I loved everything else except the turkey. Too darn dry. Too darn dry. So anyway, so that was my first home in America. The first 2 nights in America was in Marin County. I'm glad to be back. It's been great. I worked on the 2010 census, and I covered Marin County both times, and this is my 3rd time with the census. And even though I'm not that old, but I don't think I'm going to come back for the 4th time. I don't think so. I've got enough, and I think I'm going to be able to get it out of my system, hopefully. You heard everything about the census being a challenging census and digital this and digital that, but actually it's about us, each one of us. Whether it's digital, online, in person, by phone, it's all about us making sure that we all get each other counted. So the census is a national operation. It's a cookie-cutter approach across the nation. But how we get each other counted, it's up to us. And at the end of the day, the Census Bureau will have counted every single housing unit that we have on file. But what we don't know is who lives in those housing units. A lot of change, a lot of things have changed in the past 10 years in Marin County. You've seen it. You've seen what has been transformed in Marin City. It went from 73% African Americans down to less than 40% now. Canal area, contrary to everyone's belief or understanding, Marin County and Canal itself area has the highest density of Latinos anywhere in the Bay Area. Not the Mission District, not San Jose, not Oakland. It's Canal, nearly 80%. And then next, the Monument Corridor in Concord, it's about 60%. San Francisco, contrary to what you have read about La Mission, it's only 32%. And like myself, I came here as a refugee, as an immigrant, and I shared a small studio with 3 other families. Studio, that's a shoebox. And my sleeping space was between the bathroom and the kitchen. You have seen signs on the bus stops here in the Marin, in the Canal area, where apartments being rented out. Currently occupied apartments being rented out. That means that those units could possibly, legally, they should have only 4 persons or 2 or 3. They could possibly house as many as 10. That was my experience for the first 20 years of my life in America. I shared the studio with another 9 people, and then the second time was 2-bedroom I shared with another 11 people. We were not related, but we all call each other uncles and aunties and this and that. We had one thing in common. We were refugees, we were limited English speakers, and a lot of us were young. 80% of the kids who were not counted in the last census came from the houses that counted. For whatever reason, we left them off the census count. And the one cautionary tale that I would like you to keep in mind is that Marin County has historically been an well-counted county. So like, for example, in 2010 census, you were 75%. You matched Santa Clara County. So comes March 20th, you begin to see the response rate coming back. And it's, oh yeah, we're doing well. 70% of the households responded. 70% of the households responded. Not everyone. So please don't get complacent, said, oh, we're doing well. We're above the average. We're above the state. We're above Oakland, Alameda. We're above San Francisco. You know, I hate to say this, but, you know, not every child will have been counted. Divorced families. Single parent. Multiple generations. Parents, household being led by grandparents. Unrelated family members, and especially renters. And another challenge that we have between 2000, 2010, and now 2020 is that we have had a rising or increasing number of undocumented residents in our communities. And mind you, not just Latinos, Asians too. A lot of Asians, they may not have crossed the border, but they actually flown in. They simply overstayed their visas. There could be Vietnamese, there could be Indians, Koreans. You cannot explain why there's an ever-ending supply of workers at nail salons and restaurants, right? So all of those numbers, all those individuals, making the 2020 census more challenging than the past. And again, please, if you read the numbers in the news that Marin County is doing well, beginning March 20th, keep in mind that it's a lot more complex than that. And your county has become a lot more diverse than that. And we're gonna hear about Ross having a lot of P.O. boxes. You're gonna hear a lot about West Marin, have a lot of P.O. boxes. Yes, actually those places will be visited by census workers beginning March 16. They get visits from the Census Bureau that early. So in that sense, every single household in those areas will have been visited by Census Bureau. So that means that we're going to leave them with a package of how to get online and get themselves counted, or call in one of the 844 numbers. But the ones that we have the addresses, that would be more challenging. Because a lot of, Stephanie talked about the fears, trepidation, apprehension. Darlene and I, not going to risk our lives by divulging information to all the agencies. 5 years in jail, $250,000 that we don't have. We're not going to risk our lives for that. And if you go Google, the census data has not been reached at all. And in fact, Facebook has been, Uber, Lyft. In fact, you give more information to Amazon Prime. You know, when you jump into an Uber and Lyft, what do they have on you? Your debit card, your credit card, and all those things tied to you directly. So if you're gonna go online and Google for a sunny lay by the Lake Merritt, you ain't gonna find him. Not on the census website, but you're gonna find him on social media. You're gonna find him on Twitter. You're gonna find him in other ways, but not from the Census Bureau. We collect demographic data. What we release is just 0 and 1. No names, no birth dates, You know, you're going to use Google Earth and zero in on my zip code. You may find a Vietnamese guy in that neighborhood, but you're not going to find out he has 2 dogs and 2 cats. You're not going to find him. So that's the same thing applied to all of us. We're not going to be releasing anything that can be traced back to you. And nobody else has access to anything that we collect. It's a one-way street. We collect, we don't release. And you hear a lot about, okay, cybersecurity, this and that. Just keep in mind that we all provide a lot more to, God, a pizza place, a liquor store, Costco, on a daily basis. But what is being collected by the Census Bureau, not only 10 years down the road, not only about political representation and dollars and cents, it's about us. It's about humanity, our humanity. It's about validating who's among us, including those who are homeless. They need to be counted too. They are here, they live here. So they are due for that money. We pay taxes on everything. Whether we buy groceries, we pay taxes. Our income taxes, all those dollars and cents, they don't disappear, they go elsewhere. They go elsewhere. Think of it as a rebate coming back to us, okay? So if you're not counted, if we're not counted in 2020 census, that means we were not having this conversation. We're gone. So for me personally, I look back on my 1980 and 90 census, I cannot find me. So in the town where I lived, I knew of 24 Vietnamese personally. And I went back to look at the 80 census. None of Vietnamese were counted. Think about how would you feel? You're being invalidated. You don't exist. It's about acknowledging those of us who are here. The whole idea of being counted. You are here, you are here, you are here, you are here. If you're not counted, this table is not here. How would you feel if you were at this table? And also that it's about you. You know, Americans love to look at history, historical records. I don't know, I still young enough to become a billionaire one day, right? So lo and behold, I find a miracle cure for what would you like to be cured for? And I become a billionaire. Yeah, correct. And then my grandkids will want to find what did great-grandpa, where did he live? What did he do? They're not going to find anything about me until 2000. They won't find anything about me until the year 2000 because I wasn't counted in 1980 and 1990 census.
I'm glad you're here now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny. While we're switching computers, I just wanted to see if anyone has specific questions for this panel. We'll have time at the end for overall questions as well. Anything specific? Great.
Hi, my name is, this is for Sunny. Hi. You want me to stand up? Please. Okay. So I'm the foster care nurse for CFS, Children and Family Services in Marin County, and actually Tori Harder is working with probation and foster care. She had to run to a meeting, but we both want to know for foster kids that are placed out of state. Let's say they're in another state, or they're children in probation. Let's say they can be placed in Nevada. Let's say they're either at a treatment facility or they're placed in another home out of state. How are those children counted?
So we have the April 1. We ask you where you live on April 1. So if they are still with you on April 1, they will be counted here. If they get placed after April 1, then we'll be counted over there.
So if they're moved after April 1, they're counted in that other state.
So Jessica, if they're in a foster home with a foster family on April 1st, that family should receive the mailing, but you might want to notify the parents that they should count a foster child living in their home on that date.
Right, where I just got some great information, thank you for that information, about foster kids are going to be counted in their resource families. It's just that, so that's clear, and we're going to be working with those families and taking this information back to the department where we are, the Children and Family Services and Probation. It's that little kind of caveat of if they're out of state, and because foster kids can go to various places and then they can come back. So we're really looking at that. It sounds like we're looking at that window of time when they're here or they're not. And if they're in the resource family here, they're counted during that time. Okay, thank you.
There's something called, which we haven't talked about today, called the group quarters count. Sunny, do you want to talk about how that's going to happen?
So our staff at the local area for us is Santa Rosa office. Our staff have been conducting what we call advanced visits. So we visiting like the skilled nursing homes, hospice care, psychiatric institutions, and group homes for troubled kids. And then these individuals, the tenants or residents of those places will be counted where they live and sleep. We don't have many group quarters here in Marin County. We do? How many we got?
So right now, we at Community Action Marin are working on compiling the list of all of the various group quarters that include rehab facilities, center point, group homes. And so right now, I think we have about 40.
40, okay.
About 40, but we know that there are some more. It also includes Homeward Bound. There's someone from Homeward Bound here, emergency shelters. And so if you want more information about a group quarters facility, whether it's skilled nursing, assisted living, be in touch with Community Action Marin and we'll help facilitate that.
And we get the list to the office.
Okay, any other questions for the county or CAM or the Housing Authority?
I just had one quick question about when these questionnaires come back in and when we have numbers. I didn't realize there would be numbers. Is that information going to be disaggregated at all, so we'll know which areas are? And then can that be targeted? And is it real-time information that we'll know sort of day by day, or?
Yeah, so the state of California actually has built their own database. It's called SWORD. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. Their plan is to collect data from the Census Bureau and give us a dashboard, basically, that lets us see, once the census begins, how the response rates are going by census tract, which will help us with the issue that Sunny brought up, because overall, as a county, we have a great response rate, but the Canal Alliance with the census tract where Canal Alliance is located is the hardest to count tract in the county, and their response rate is much lower. So we're really going to be looking at response rate by census tract, and if we see that response rate is low, then we know we need to pivot, right, and start doing additional outreach in those areas. So our understanding is we will be seeing that data not only during the self-response period, the first 6 weeks, mid-March to end of April, but we'll be seeing it all the way through. So if there are people...
March 20th, beginning March 20th.
Right, but for us, we can still be doing outreach right through July, through the end of non-response follow-up. So if we see that those response rates are low, then we can target those areas for additional outreach. And hopefully I'm not giving anything away, Sunny, but the website's going to be available the whole time, right?
Right.
Right. So when you go online to respond to your census, the Census Bureau would really like for you to do it by the end of April. But if you haven't, and a census taker comes to your door and you decide, I don't want to deal with a census taker, you can still go online and do your census. So we know that we have to do additional outreach based on those numbers, all the way through July. Did that answer your question?
Do we know, Stephanie and Sunny, do we know yet what the URL is to go on and respond to the census? Is it mycensus2020.org? Or?
Because of safety, we're not revealing the website. When you go to 2020census.gov, from there you be taken directly to the portal where you respond to the census. Once you get your form in the mail, you will see the actual URL. Okay, that begins in March 12th. So we bought a bunch of websites that sound census just to keep them away from the dirty hands or, grubby hands, fingers, nefarious characters. So we bought a lot of websites.
Okay, any other questions before we move on? There'll still be time at the end. One more question.
This is for Sunny. We have a lot of families that live in the same apartment, like you said, 2 or 3 instead of 2 or 3 adults. I know that you guys are sending like one form per family or per home.
Yes.
So this 3 families
Right.
that live in the same place,
Right.
do they fill out the same one form, or each family is needed to fill out an individual form for each family at the same place?
This is the biggest challenge for those dense areas. So if you own or rent a place, personally, you think about yourself. You don't want the government to know that you have supplanted the place out to other people. That's natural, that's understandable. So I hope that what we, among ourselves, we would have done a good job enough that remind people, regardless of whether your landlord or your tenant have counted themselves, get online, get on the phone, call the Census Bureau, and get yourself counted. Overcounting is a Census Bureau's problem. We have the ways and means to cross-check people. Undercounting, we want to avoid. Okay, overcounting, it's a good problem. Okay, so tell people any given time they believe that I have not been counted, call the 1-844 number or get online and get themselves counted.
So whoever receives that form should count everyone in their place.
See, the challenge is that if they're not related to each other, you don't know the demographic data. You don't know the race and the age and the birth dates and the actual names. So that's a challenge. So that wouldn't be a good data.
Okay.
We don't want bad data. So, but if they know that, it's fine. That's great.
But the residence is the one that's going to receive the census,
So-
not family.
Can you repeat
Not
that?
family, just one, no name, no address, no name. We don't know who lived there. We just know the resident. So.
Great.
So the form doesn't come to a family, it comes to the house.
The house, correct.
So
Okay.
you could have more than one response from that house.
Correct.
Yes.
Because if you have several families and the families want to answer
Right.
separately, they could in effect, and that would be really the best thing to happen, is that even though there's an extra family living there, let them complete it, and even though it shows the same address, that's perfectly fine. Okay?
Okay, we're going to continue on. We're very glad to have Rachel Wallace here from the First 5 Association, and she's going to talk to us about the messaging guide that's been prepared and to explain the outreach materials that are available for you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel. Would you mind clicking? You were so good at clicking before. Yeah, very skilled at making sure it's on. So as Michelle mentioned, my name is Rachel Wallace, and I am the Bay Area Regional Census Coordinator for the First 5 Association of California. So essentially what that is the First 5 Association that assists all of the county First 5s. We have a census team throughout the entire state, and I cover all 12 counties of the Bay Area. So a very geographically large area up north in kind of wine country down through Monterey, Santa Cruz. So lots of travel, that's fun. I've seen a lot of new places in the Bay that I hadn't seen before, and spent a bit of time in Marin recently at a lot of events because Marin is very active in trying to get this complete count, so we're very excited about that. So basically, I'm just gonna go through our messaging guide, and hopefully it's a helpful resource. As I mentioned, we have a census team. This is everyone who's on our team, so Kendra Rogers, is leading the team, and so she is in Fresno, but is kind of always up here helping us out. And then I do want to also highlight Ana Lugo is doing training, so she's developed a training deck for us. I know that we are in the process of trying to schedule one for people who couldn't make it today or people who want more information in Marin. So it's a kind of train the trainer model. As one of the speakers, I can't remember who said this earlier, was talking about trauma-informed messaging. So our training is very, very centered on that. It gives a lot of good context on the history of race in the census and how that really impacts how undercounted populations might want to participate or not want to participate. And so we definitely take a trauma-informed and trauma-centered approach. So that's something that we are rolling out as well. So that's our team. So it's essentially today, as I had mentioned, I want to talk about the messaging and resources. And so I want to get started though by, you've been talked at for a while, so taking a few minutes to just kind of talk with your tables about your experience with the census. The reason why I ask this is because I've actually never done the census myself. I've always been counted on someone else's census, but I'm going to do it this year. And so, which I guess is important. So you can just press present up in the top right. But yeah, so I wanted to essentially get people to think about your own experiences with the census. I think as trusted messengers, it's important to know kind of like where you're coming from before you expect other people to talk about their experiences and their concerns. So I have a few questions, if you could go to the next one. So take a few minutes. I'll probably I know that we have something else after this, so maybe like 2 or 3 minutes to talk about these questions, one or all of them. So what is your experience with the census? Did you face any barriers, any concerns? And what are maybe some of the benefits that you see for yourself and your family? And then we'll show you some messaging. Okay, everyone. It sounds like there's a lot of lively conversation. Okay. Everyone, if we could join back in. It sounds like there's a lot of great conversation. I hate to break that up. Thank you, Jen. Wow, that was nice. This is great. Everyone's making friends. You haven't talked to each other in a while, so I'm glad I could facilitate that. We will have more time later, I'm sure, after all the presenters maybe continue some of those conversations, and there will be like another prompt in a few slides. But I was going to share a little bit about like what I talked about at our table. It's interesting that we'll be in a room full of, I don't know, like 60, 70 people or something who are here to learn about the census, who are engaged in this work, and so many people are like, I don't remember filling that out. Like, I've never done it. Like, I don't, or people just don't remember. Like, maybe it's not like a memorable thing, or like, did I ever get something? I don't know. Like, have my parents done it? I mean, I think I was counted on someone's census. I don't know if I've ever been counted. And so that just highlights, if everyone in this room is not sure if they've ever done it, then people who have no exposure to the census often haven't, or might not even know what they don't know, right? And so that is the goal of our messaging strategy. So our messaging guide is available on the First Five Association website. That's the direct link, but no one remembers that. So if you just go to the first5association.org, there's a census tab that takes you there. And so essentially we have a document that's the actual messaging guide that has categorized the messages in 3 ways. General awareness, and it's also given a timeline for each category. So general awareness is really as soon as possible. People have been doing it in Marin County. I mean, Stephanie's been working on this for years now. So awareness is the first stage, and so that is ongoing. Pain points, again, ongoing. Really kind of the beginning part of 2020 is when a lot of people are hearing a lot of information, and as they hear more information, they start to have more concerns, more questions. So that's when we're talking about some of the pain points, and I'll go through them in a minute. And then value adds. So these are kind of the value-based messages, what is the benefit to me? Why should I feel like I should participate in this? As Sunny was mentioning too, I count, right? So that's a really beneficial message just to let people know that they count. I hadn't really thought of it that way explicitly. I always think of the dollars because I like data. So I'm oh, the data is great. But just physically feeling like you count where you are present, where you're living is really important. So some messages around that. And then we also have in the document messages for subpopulations in the 0 to 5 community. So non-English speaking communities, low income, mixed generation. So not only are we talking about maybe households where there are multiple families living in a household, but maybe mixed generation families, and that's often really common in immigrant communities as well, so that we have some messaging around that. Immigrants in general, documented and undocumented, people in rural communities, people with lack of broadband internet access at home. So we've really split it out into subpopulations, and it's available right now in English and Spanish. We are taking requests for additional languages as they come. It's kind of been what we've been doing with our messaging strategy and our materials. I just picked up some materials for Alameda County in Mandarin that we got because they were like, we need them. I know in San Francisco, they're also working a lot on that. So that's what we have now. And I will go through some of the messages now. So the first category, as I mentioned, is general awareness. So on the next slide, there's on our website, there are 6 general awareness like social media posts. There's really quick like links that you can just like post it to Facebook very quickly, post it to Twitter really quickly. For those of you who manage your social media accounts, for those of you who don't, just like sharing this and the general messaging with people you know. So the first is just really if they live at your address, they belong on the census, even if they're not even if you're not their parent. So that can often be, you know, youth. We talked a little bit about in like foster homes. So people often think maybe it's just my biological children, and that is 100% not the case. In California, we have a lot of people who are not living with their biological parents, but that's their family, that's where they live, and that's where they need to be counted. And then again, this is also for kids, the second message, who stay somewhere like most of the time. Maybe it's like a grandparent's house or split custody, but wherever they are most of the time is where they count. Can you go to the next one? The third and fourth is just really about babies. So the third one's about babies counting. As Stephanie mentioned, if your newborn is born on April 1st, they count. And so there's a county that I'm working with in the South Bay who they have like an outreach program going to like the neonatal units and like signing people up when they like give birth. They're like, great, congratulations, you're under delivery. Like the census is coming soon. So they're like not playing, they're like at the hospital. And so that's really important to know. And there might be some entry points in addition to that. You know, WIC offices are a place where a lot of people go very young with their very young children. So making sure we're pivoting towards that. And then this is, again, the same kind of just everyone who's at your address. And then the last ones, again, are very similar on the next slide. So just saying the census isn't just for adults. That's actually something, just like that phrase itself, people don't actually really know all the time. They think, you know, it's just an adult thing. I'm getting in the mail and I'm filling it out, so I'm the one who's going to be on it. And so just making sure that people don't know that. And then again, if a child is staying temporarily, that's really important. So it doesn't have to be a permanent situation. So we've talked about, oftentimes we'll say with adult relatives, like people who are staying on your couches and stuff like that, but that also applies to children. So even if you're not sure that they're going to be there for the rest of 2020 or for the rest of the summer, where they are on April 1st is where they need to count, even if it's temporary. The next section of messaging is the pain points. This one's really important. I feel like this is where we get a lot of our questions. And so the first one is really, or the first two are really about privacy. I feel like this has been covered a lot today, so I won't go into them in detail. I actually really like the point about like, I do give a lot more of my information to Amazon Prime than I would to the census. So I might have to steal that one. So when I will be honest, when I first saw the form, I mean the sample form, they haven't released like the exact one yet. I was trying to go through it as if I was doing it just so I could familiarize myself with what I'm telling people to do. And I was like, why do they need my phone number? Like, that's weird. I don't want that. Because I get a lot of political calls and I'm like, are they going to call me all the time, right? But then I was like, I give my phone number everywhere to get like Wi-Fi at a cafe. So just putting that in perspective and trying to ensure people that there is much more cybersecurity put in place and the Title 13 laws to protect that data than there are in a lot of places where you're actively giving your information. So this is, these two of the pain points are related to privacy. The third and fourth, so the third one is about immigration status. As we know, there was a large conversation at the federal level about citizenship questions. There will not be a citizenship question on the census, but that doesn't mean that it didn't have negative impacts in terms of fear in the immigrant community, especially people who are undocumented or have mixed status families. So, you know, as we talk to people, they'll say, well, we know there's not a question, but the fact that there was even a debate, and we know why there was a debate, to intimidate people, and And so some people are really dissuaded from just the fact that it came up and that it got so much press and that it was so scary for a lot of people. And so that's something we're wanting to make sure people know that it's not. But as was shared before, just listening to people and sharing their concerns is really helpful, I think, on the ground. And one thing I also like to say is the follow-up period. So a lot of the people who might have mixed status families are really concerned about people coming to their house. That's like because we see on the news all of the ICE deportations, people getting taken from their homes. They're like, we don't want someone to come to our house. Like that is enough to scare people away. So we're really trying to tell people to self-select into Census before you get follow-up, because if you don't participate, that's when you're going to get someone knocking at your door if you aren't like participating ahead of the follow-up period. So I don't know if that makes people feel any better, maybe not, and maybe that's okay that people are still uneasy and we respect where they're coming from with that. But really just getting them to participate proactively will actually prevent follow-up and any fears coming with that. And then the fourth one is about the lifetime oath. The last section is the values-based or the value-add messages. So the first one is basically just about school funding. We know that a lot of people in our circle are early childhood educators, people involved with Head Start, like teachers, and so just making sure that people know that schools funding for 10 years is really tied to this, and people respond very positively to schools, public schools. They're like, oh, we need those. I send my kids there, and so that message is important for us. This one's about Medi-Cal and WIC. A lot of the families that we work with are relying on these services to help support their families, and so making sure, as Stephanie mentioned, even just mentioning the programs, you don't have to get into the numbers. I don't know like the exact numbers for, there was a slide with each one and how much the federal funding is at stake for each program, but just mentioning the name of the program is really enough because people know what that means to them. The next one is about healthcare to schools, public transportation, a little bit more general. And then the last one is about the undercount and how big the scale is of that in California. So that is our messaging guide. Kind of after hearing that, I want to give maybe like 2 minutes, and then I will close up with just screenshots of our website, essentially. 2 minutes to kind of talk about which of these messages might be most useful, if there are any that could be helpful. And for that, I would say find me after and tell me, and we can try to create some messaging around it. And then what are you most excited about regarding reaching out to families? I have some things that I'm excited about. I'm excited to just share information and make people feel like they're going to be validated by being counted. So those will take 2 minutes, and then we'll finish up. So thank you, everyone, for that conversation. I know at our table we talked about some messaging that I know has been kind of on my radar to try to figure out a really good answer for, is how to get youth who are experiencing homelessness counted, so like targeted messaging there. There have been some resources around foster youth that have been coming out through the state and different counties, so those are some examples. As I said before, I know we're like short on time, but if you have any additional ideas for messages that would be helpful in your very specific communities, definitely come find me after, and I'll also have my contact info on the last slide. But I wanted to make you familiar with what our website looks like, essentially. So when you go to the social press kit that we have the messaging guide up in the top left, but we also have a lot of other information. So earned media materials, we have radio readers, as well as all the social posts, some like activities for kids, the fact sheets. So we have a lot up there, and the whole press kit is available in Spanish as well. So it's like every material is in both languages. And then in terms of activities for kids, I wanted to highlight a few because I know some of you work directly with children and families. So we have this We Count book. It's so cute. It's a little reading book, and basically it goes through different families and counts how many people there are with little characters. It's very inclusive. I love to see it. And so we have this book, and along with that, we've developed, I didn't like personally develop this, but we have a placemat. It's like when you go to a restaurant or something and kids have a little activity placemat at their seat. So it has the characters from the different books. Kids can play games, get information. There's links for like the families and parents to more information. We also have
Rachel, sorry, just on that, it
yes.
might not be a bad idea to actually get those two family-style restaurants
Yes.
and ask them to hand them out to
So
families with children.
We've made an order from Marin County on placemats, so we will be trying to get some of those into the county. We haven't put the PDF up yet on the social press kit, but it will be, and it's on 11 by 17, so just for reference on printing. And then activity sheets, we will also be getting an order in for Marin County. There's 4 of them. I just put 2 of them up here, but these are really good for, like, we spoke to the Head Start group on Friday, and this is something they can just like do with kids and make it like an activity in class or in their programs. And so we have these available. They're available for print online. They're just a regular 8.5 by 11, but we will be printing a quantity and getting them out to Marin for distribution to the partners. And I will say, in addition to that, there was an idea that came up at the Head Start meeting on Friday to have like, we were trying to figure out how you could make it engaging for people who are educators, and they had an idea to like have a classroom count. So like there's how many people who are in our class to get them in like the process of thinking about counts. So I'm trying to figure out if we can get, I'm gonna be flagging this to our team, like a kind of template for a classroom count like sign that teachers can have on their door. So as we get additional information and additional materials, we'll be communicating that with the partners in Marin and getting it out. Print materials and swag items is my last slide. Basically, just want to let you know that I have print materials and swag items on the table outside.
A lot.
A lot of them. I see many of you have already taken the canvas bags. There's drawstring bags. There are the bookmarks, English and Spanish, the palm cards, English, Spanish. This is a really good timeline sheet. So just giving people those key dates that were on Stephanie's slides as well. It's English front and Spanish on the other side as well as for people who have like a bulletin board. This is a larger version, so it's in Spanish and English as well. We have additional swag items. We'll be sending out shipments soon to all the counties, and Marin has placed an order for swag, so there'll be more available. But that's pretty much what I'm here to go over. I know we don't have a ton of time, but if there's like maybe 1 or 2 questions, I could take. If not, I have cards, and I will be outside at the end too.
Just specifically, can you start with people are welcome to take more than 1 of each item, right? They could
Yes.
take little handfuls. Great.
Yes, yeah, I know that had already been a question, yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if we're doing
Can you
anything
repeat?
on the 28th. Is that in March? Yeah, there's an event on March 28th. That's a community event. Oh, you mean the training? No, we don't have a date for that yet. But I know that there had been some interest in getting like a full-fledged training to come to Marin, so we're gonna figure that out as
And
well.
we'll all be sharing that. So as soon as we find out anything's final, First 5 Marin will share it on Facebook and try to send an email blast, but specifically to the group that that registered for today. But I'm sure that CAM and Canal Alliance will be sharing as well.
We do actually have something in place. If you want to get a speaker to come and speak to a group, whether it's your employees or a group of parents, you can, what's that? Yeah, you can go to marincensus2020.org, and there's a place there that you can request a speaker. And that will get to Stephanie or me or Rachel, and we will coordinate amongst ourselves to get you a speaker. So the place to go is marincensus2020.org and just request a speaker.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Rachel?
Okay.
Thank you, Rachel, so much.
Yeah, thanks.
So thanks for your patience, everyone. We want to continue on and really focus on outreach to Latino families and Spanish speakers. So I want to invite my panelists to come up, Florencia, Andrew, Fernando, and Lorenzo again. And did someone lose their sunglasses? Back table.
Test, test.
Counts in their own special way. The census counts everywhere, count all who live with you. Sisters, uncles, grandmas, and your newborn babies too. 'Cause everyone counts in the US of A. Everyone counts in their own special way.
We count all your neighbors and we count all your friends until we count you.
Everyone counts in their own special way. Especially en español. So we just want to continue the conversation and have a chance to discuss with you some of the specific challenges for outreach to Latino families, Spanish speakers in Marin, and hear what our panelists know some of those challenges are, what some of the solutions are. Fernando?
Hello, everybody. My name is Fernando Barreto, and Canal Alliance has been reaching out the Hispanic Latino community in San Rafael starting September last year. So far, we have been able to, in person, talk, educate, inform almost 4,000 people. And we have learned several things. For example, related to the citizenship question, right? Yes, they are aware that that's not going to happen, but they're also concerned of the implications of the data management and any sort of leak, right? So beside all the things that we have shared today about a good strategy to promote confidence within the Latino community, this is also about our democracy, guys, right? And we as immigrants, I'm an immigrant myself, all right? We came to this country because we definitely believe in the system. We believe in the democracy of the US, all right? And any sort of lack on the information of the census will somehow be the end of our democracy, all right? So it's a time for all of us to stand together as a community to protect the results of the census, all right? And that has been actually a good driver for the community to feel more confident. Definitely, I agree with Karen on the validation of the concern, all right? Hey, but I'm concerned about my data. Yes, absurd. Yeah, I hear you, you know? And you're not alone, you know? Some other folks actually are concerned about this, all right? But part of the strategy we have used in Canal Alliance was always use a positive, concise messaging, all right? Never let the conversation just base on fear and misinformation, all right? We can go more over that. And in a very connective way, individually, on the level of the family and the community as well, highlight the benefits, all right? When we were counted, all right? Highlight the benefits that this is gonna last for 10 years. For the Hispanic community, we'll learn that this is all about dignity. It's a community that has been pushed to live in the shadows in the past 3 years, that has been put under a lot of pressure in any single way. It's a community that somehow believes that has no rights nowadays. And this is actually the time where we can start activating our rights, our opportunity, right? This is our American dream, all right? This is the time for each one of us to go out and respond to census, all right? Because it doesn't matter if we have papers or we don't have paper. That's the kind of language we use, right? If we're men or women, if you're kids or ancianitos, all right? The elderly, right? We all get counted, all right? And that's the biggest action we can really take to let this country and the world know that we are here, that we exist. We're facing the challenge now of how to respond to census. Would it be paper or online, right? Big part actually of the Latino community, they have heard about the census, either in the countries of origin or either in here, right? But they're used to the paper form. So paper form, yeah, it might be an option, especially for targets of the community. They don't feel comfortable with the use of technology, right? I was reading the other day a report from NALEO highlighting actually this, right? That probably the generation 35 years old and older are definitely gonna have challenges on responding to census online. Compare. That's what they say, not me, okay? Compare probably to the younger generations that are gonna feel more comfortable on responding to census online, all right? So how actually to always provide a resource, an opportunity through the QACs, through the partnership of all the agencies and organizations and local government to always extend a hand, right? And give an opportunity to anyone actually that still had doubts, questions, or simply as a lack of the resources to respond to the census, right? Talking about citizenship and immigration is the census takers, the census enumerator. What's going to happen May the 1st? Having a stranger knocking on your door. If there's a lesson we learned in the past 3 years was to never open the door to a stranger. So what do we do now? And we're not saying other thing. We're not saying the opposite, all right? But what we're saying now is if we want to prevent a stranger knocking on our doors, let's go respond the census first. So our challenge is get all Latinos counted in April. Well, actually, starting mid-March. Online, all right? We cannot even wait to the paper form. The paper form is going to be mailed out by mid-April, all right? And, well, I don't know, as soon as we fill out all the responses and all that stuff, it might be late already, all right? So all Latinos counted first. Yes, Karen?
When does the phone, because we were talking about at our table the importance of also messaging the telephone for those who are not literate, even in their native language, to be able to fill out paper form. What's the date that you can call in?
Can you repeat that? Repeat the question?
I was asking what.
Yeah, no, I want him to do it in the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Sonny?
Yes. When can you begin getting yourself counted? By phone, March 9th.
Okay, so, and that's definitely a great option. To the Hispanic community that is not confident with writing, we're talking about literacy. Hey, you know what? You don't even actually need to write or something to respond. You can just do it online. Right? And the 3 ways, paper, online, and phone are available in Espanol. All right? And finally, the other point in here is related to, oh my God, I forgot. Because I had so many ideas in my mind. It's related to, that's fine. I'll tell you guys later when okay? So I'm going to yield the time to.
Hi, everyone. Once again, I'm Lorenzo, and I work for Supervisor Dennis Rodoni. And let me explain a little bit about Supervisor Rodoni's district, and it actually reveals why our office has been actively engaged with the census. So Supervisor Dennis Rodoni represents the 11 coastal villages of Marin County. So from Dillon Beach up north all the way to Muir Beach, over Mount Tamp to the Homestead Valley and the Mill Valley area, Corte Madera, the East Santa Fe portion of the city of Santa Fe that follows along the San Quentin Village. So we have the prison in our district. We have the Green Bay Boardwalk and a little piece of Larkspur, so Larkspur Landing. And we have 25% of West Novato. So as you can imagine, our district is not only the most vastly geographic region of the Marin County Board of Supervisors, but we represent a plethora of all types of people, with the Canal neighborhood, our largest Latinx concentrated community, and the Latinx community in our agricultural lands in West Marin. So immediately we knew that we needed to have a seat at the table at the decision-making level to ensure that our communities that depend most on the services that we provide, that they know that the census is coming and that it's an opportunity for them to really reveal that they matter and tell us, we use your services, we're here in the community, and let's get everyone counted. So from the higher level, I'm pretty engaged in the many initiatives in our community that target specifically our Latinx community. Canal Alliance, with Stephanie really at the helm, is doing a remarkable job at making sure that our folks in the canal, but at the West Marin region, we're very active with an organization called West Marin Community Services. It's arguably one of our most central organizations in West Marin that specifically targets the human needs issues in our community, and they have a very good grasp of our Latinx community. And they actually have a program called the West Marin Connection Program, where they are training folks from the community, so folks that look like me, to go into our ranching communities and make contact with our communities and educate them on the census. We're taking that a step further, and we're actually creating a whole wraparound services. So it's not just the census is, are you getting enough food? Is your child getting the health care that they need? Are you getting the health care that they need? Most often with our ranching families, women are taking care of the children while the husband's out, ranching in the field. So it's making sure that they, as women, are getting the appropriate services that they need to be healthy. So again, recognizing that our Latinx community has a very distinct way of operating, and acknowledging that in order for us to try to make this glamorous for them or just impactful in their daily life, we have to recognize what are the other issues that they care about, and how can we make this relevant to them as well. I'll share with you another program that I'm just amazed at the North Marin Community Services. This is a Novato-based organization that we work closely with. They are actually training hairdressers to be educated on the census, because we've learned that a lot of families get some information from their hairdresser. So what better way than for you to, beautify yourself and also learn a little bit more about the census. So they are, like Fernando says, a trusted messenger. And that's ultimately what this initiative and effort is going to rely on, is whether or not that person who's learning about the census, that person looks like them, they speak the same language, they have the same needs and issues, and that's why it's vitally important that all of us amplify that there are census jobs out there, that there are opportunities for you to engage at whatever level you can, and this really is an all hands on deck effort. Stephanie's doing a wonderful job at making sure that all the information that we need for the county, that it's readily available. Please use that. We have it in multiple languages, Spanish and English, because we know that here in Marin County, those are the languages that we can readily make available, and those are the folks that we, typically serve. But we also have a wonderful Vietnamese community. We have a thriving Haitian community. So let's not also forget that some of the issues that our Latinx folks are facing, other immigrant communities also have similar issues. So let's remember that, and let's be cognizant of that. So again, wonderful work is being done in our community by several different community partners, specifically targeting our Latinx community. It's all a matter of March 16th and March 9th getting here and people being notified that it's time to do the census, and just making sure that we make that information available for our community. So again, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to provide you some information. I really am proud, and I can speak on behalf of the supervisor, that we are very enthusiastic about what's to come in the next few weeks. We are excited, and we've been putting a lot of resource and time to make sure that this time in Marin, recognizing the issues that we have going on at the federal level, that at least we have given it our 110%. So again, thank you.
Lorenzo. I just have a quick question. You mentioned about the supervisor's district and the ranching communities. We were talking earlier about rental situations in the canal where there may be multiple families and renters having a concern about being counted. Is there any concern that a landowner in West Marin might be concerned about people coming in because maybe the housing situation isn't correct, or there are too many people?
That's an absolutely valid concern in West Marin. And in fact, West Marin Community Services, the first step in them getting access to visiting the folks that live in the ranching communities is actually making contact with the rancher, so the landowner. So I'm not sure if you're familiar how a ranching community works, but at the basic level, we have several thriving agricultural farms in West Marin, and there's a landlord or a land owner of that property, and they often have trailers, a set of trailers that they dedicate for the people that are their staff, and these are the families that have been historically undercounted in West Marin. In fact, if you look at the 2010 census data for the Tamales Dillon Beach area, it counts 0 children. That is absolutely not true. 0 children in the Tamales Dillon Beach area. And as soon as our community recognized that that was the case, they actually have been reaching out to us. So we've been working with the agricultural community. Dennis and I were at the Marin County Farm Bureau annual dinner last week, and that's a topic that came out, was these ag owners wanted to know, how can we help to make sure that we're counting our people? So the interest is there, but it is a very valid concern for our ag folks as well.
Great, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Florencia Parada. I work at the Marin Community Clinics. I'm the Community Outreach Manager. We do have a program, an outdoor program, the name is Health Hubs. And for those who don't know what the Health Hubs is, it's a community health fair that's happening twice a week, one in San Rafael, one in Novato, where we had the opportunity to see individuals, 700, literally 700 people coming twice a week, not just to receive food assistance through our food pantry distribution, but also different other activities that we promote, that we provide, nutrition education, checking blood pressure and glucose, community partners who also come monthly to provide services, to provide information about their services. So what we do and what we believe as a community is the collaboration. It's how we unify efforts, how we all together can work for the same community and the Canal and Novato, for the same community, how we all share information, how we all educate each other, and then we can bring that information in our sites. One thing that we're doing is collaborating with Dominican University. Dominican University, last semester in the fall, they came to the health hubs and they conduct a series of interviews, series of questions, just about fear. We wanted to know what is the fear in our community regarding census. What do you know about the census? Are you familiar about the census? And if you did it in your country, we do have a lot of families, Central American families, who were responding about, yes, I am familiar about the census because we did it in our country. So that was really good for us to know. So, but what is different here and what is the fear here? Obviously, the immigration, all the information, especially for your immigration status, is a challenge, and we know that. But what they were telling us is, you always ask us the same question, and we always responding, yes, we are afraid, yes, we have a fear, but then what is now, what can we do now? How we can take action, how we can also create a community where our volunteers or participants can also be active in their participation. So the things that we're doing with Dominican University and also with the support of Canal Alliance Parent Services Project also is that we will be training volunteers at our site because our program is run by volunteers. And this is important for us because the volunteers are coming from elementary school, middle school, high schools, college students. We do have also volunteers, seniors, people with disabilities. More inclusive we are in our community, better our information will be received by everyone who participates in our programs. But definitely our participants, our community members need to see us all together, working, sending the same message. One thing it is important also, and with all my respect, when we talk about the American dream, not everyone believes about that. Not everybody feels that. Not everybody receives the opportunities and access to those opportunities. So we always want to be listeners, good listeners, active listeners, and also respect everyone's opinions about that because everyone's experience matters. One thing they talk about these interviews, my voice matters, but how we can make sure that I'm not just saying my voice matters, that it is actually true that my voice matters, that me as a person doesn't matter just as a number, but as a face, as a human being with children who are here in this community, who might not come because they wanted to pursue the American dream, but came because they were forced to come here because what is happening in our countries. So that is very important for us. When we're talking about equity, we definitely need to be more intentional about equity too, because we talk about equity in a beautiful way, but when it comes in actions, we definitely need to learn how to collaborate, how to be together, unifying those efforts, not duplicating efforts, not reinventing the wheel, but working together as a community, because that is a reflection in our community. So our families know, they notice that, and it's important for all of us to continue working on that. Another thing that is important, we were talking at the table with Rachel and some of the Dominican University students who are here with us. So I'm really happy with you guys because they're also giving us an opportunity to learn and to train other volunteers who might never thought, I'm gonna be trained to do the census. I never thought about that, how important it is to do this. But one of the things and questions is about vote. How I cannot do the census because I don't know how to vote, because I cannot even vote. I myself cannot vote yet, but I can do the census. And my experience can be shared with others who might be in the similar situation. So that's another thing that we can also identify ourselves with the challenges that we ourselves are facing and how we share that story with others, because our stories matters again. So the vote is very confusing for our people because they think that they cannot do the census because if they cannot vote, they can't. So that's another message that we need to also send and talk about it in a very intentional way with our participants. Every single time our participants at the Health Hub comes, it's an opportunity for us to provide a connection. It's an opportunity for us to provide an information. We're not just passing in our food pantry distribution potatoes, carrots, any other vegetable that is super important for our nutrition, but at the same time, we're passing a connection. And I always talk with the students about that when they come and support us at the Health House. We are sharing information. We are passing another education that might be very beneficial for our family members. And it's also interactions. We are building a relationship with another person. So we are creating this type of interactions that are important in our community. So one thing that is important in the message, we were mentioning in the beginning today about texting. Texting is important, and you share a number. When you share a number, you told us, write census, and then it's gonna come the message in your text. I did it, but I add by mistake census information. When I did that, what it says as a response, sorry, we didn't understand that. Please call 211 for assistance. So it is important for us when we're doing these outreach activities, try it ourselves first. Let's do it ourselves, practice ourselves, because we might come these type of messages that could create another confusion. That's another challenge. So we do it ourselves first, try it, practice, and then we can share that information with others. Then I do it different, and I actually wrote census. That was different. Then they say, yes, we are the Bay Area, counts 2020, and that information came. So we need to be very careful in the way we send our messages too, so then we can be clear. So raising awareness is very important for us. It is also for us an important outreach effort that we're doing with Dominican University. Every single week in the month of March, we will be having Dominican University students helping us at the health hubs, at our food pantry distributions in San Rafael and Novato, twice a week, but also in the weekend. I know that some of you mentioned that knocking doors, it might not be that effective, but we learned with the Marin Organizing Committee many times when we were doing that neighborhood walks, when we were at the community, knocking doors or just passing the information, that was effective, and you will not believe how many people were actually happy and actually open to even share the space with us and talk with us and even offer a cookies and coffee or other pupusas sometimes. That was pretty lucky for me. I'm from El Salvador, and if you offer me pupusas, I'll stay with you for 2 hours. But that was really good. So we will be doing in a weekend twice in the month of March. We will go with the students, bilingual students, just to the different buildings, 400 buildings in the canal. If you don't know, it would be good if you go to the canal and just go to do a tour. There is a huge opportunity there because we have so many families living in the challenges of our apartments and how many, 3-4 families living in one apartment. We know that, we saw that. We saw how many people are living also in the floor in the kitchen, renting that piece of the kitchen just for them to have a bed. So it is challenging. Our families are at risk, and we definitely are here to support each other, to collaborate as a community clinics. We have that opportunity, and we can do it.
Yay. Thank you, Florencia. question, just a moment.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. You just gave me so much energy and motivation. That was fantastic. And the previous speakers as well. Thank you for really centering the affected communities. And I have just some information and an ask of everyone up there. On March 31st, we'll have our next Truth Act Forum with the Board of Supervisors. It'll be at 5:30 at the Civic Center. Supervisors Chambers. This is an event that we're hoping the community, everyone in the community can come and discuss the fear, discuss the causes of these issues, and really, give testimony and feel comfortable speaking to our elected representatives about how they feel. So hopefully we'll be able to be partners in getting the message out and having that be a robust event to have a real community involvement and not miss this opportunity because they don't come around too often. So, what I'm wondering is if we can work together to get that out there in all the different networks and make sure that's an event that we can talk about the census and all the different issues. Hopefully we can do that together for the Truth Act.
You will not leave without my number, and I will not leave without your number, and we will do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
March 31st. ICE out of Marin. We'll share that information. Just a thought, because we did a census forum actually about 6 months ago in the Board of Supervisors chambers, and it was a very different attendance. Not everyone will feel comfortable to come to the Civic Center, where the courts are, where police may be. So just a thought. So if you.
That's why I'm asking for the support in getting that attendance.
Right, and that will be one way, but as we've seen under many things, to get a true reaction, I might want to get out into the community. Yeah, great. Okay, Andrew.
Thank you. So my name's Andrew Raphael, and I'm with Parent Services Project, and I'm leading the Census Outreach Initiative in conjunction with these wonderful people and organizations. And I guess I just want to say that I've attended probably 24 similar trainings and workshops around the census, and honestly this must be the best distillation and summary of the key points from Stephanie's wonderful presentation to everything that we've run through today. If this is the only thing you've attended in terms of familiarizing yourself with the census, I would say this brings together a lot of the key points. So without trying to reinvent the wheel, I'm going to just try to run through a couple of the things that I want to highlight, emphasize, and reinforce. Starting perhaps with where we left off, which is that while organizations like the United Way and the Census Bureau and certainly Canal Alliance here at a local level are incredibly important, as we started out in the beginning of this, saying we're all trusted messengers here, and I think that the data and statistics bears out the fact that us as individuals and smaller scale CBOs, community-based organizations, we are the people, individuals, and teams that the community members we're trying to reach really believe in and trust, and so it behooves all of us to synthesize this and try to assimilate the information so that the people that depend on us have it. Let's see. The trauma validation, I think, is an incredibly important point, something that Fernando and I have been circling back to in our interactions with small groups and individuals. Staying positive and concise, that's something we've picked up from the United Way materials, making sure that while we validate and encourage people to share their fears, that we acknowledge them, validate them, and then move through them, because lingering on them is not necessarily productive to the outreach efforts. In my own experience and along with Fernando, I found that personalizing the story, certainly Parent Services Project with the onus of supporting families with young children, it's been pretty easy for me to tie the importance of the census to the person that the people I've been speaking to are carrying on their back or are holding the hand as they bring them into our office. And so saying, your kid is 2 years old, God willing, in 10 years, they're going to be 12, and these are the impacts that the census count is going to have on them, this person, over the next 10 years of their life. And I think that we've seen that really hit home for individuals, parents, and families. Prevention through participation, right? If you don't want to have somebody you don't know knocking on your door, which the Dominican survey that we both participated in and then were involved in processing some of that data, it really stuck out that people do not want to have strangers knocking on their doors if they can prevent it. So it's easy. I don't want somebody knocking on my door I don't know, so I'm going to do the census survey before the end of April. And it's that simple. If you feel the same way, you should go ahead and do it. And the text hotline, I think, is an excellent way to get people involved, committed, and informed in a way that is both passive and respectful. I signed up for it in, I don't know, early January, and after receiving a series of informational texts, I am no longer being bombarded with messages. And so it's both appropriate and helpful without being inundating or harassing. The efforts to get the information out through our platforms, like on social media, it's worth noting that Facebook has been restricting, like unless you pay Facebook to disseminate your information, they're going to really restrict the outreach. And so we can all help each other, both within your organizations and our community partners, by if you see Parent Services Project post something on Facebook, like it, comment it, share it. The same with Canal Alliance, and we should all be supporting each other through our various social media platforms. And it's something I'm really excited about, and I think it's really important for all of us to keep in mind in looking specifically at the Latinx community in the Canal and other areas, is understanding that even within the Latinx community, there's a lot of subgroups, both culturally, ethnically, and most importantly, linguistically, right? And so it's pretty well established that there are tens of thousands of non-native speakers, non-Spanish speakers from Central America living in the Canal and surrounding areas. And so not taken for granted that somebody walking into your office is going to understand the information, be it in English or in Spanish, doing consistent checks for understanding and having individuals either repeat back or rephrase information, turning to peers who may be speakers of MAM or Quiche. And it's really exciting. Canal Alliance and Parent Service Project is partnering with the Dominican students in the graphic design department to create visual messaging, and this is in response to the information from the survey they conducted, saying that visual messaging is very effective, and we're trying to work with Solidaridad Guatemala to make sure that there are outreach materials available, not just in Spanish, but also in Quiche and MAM. And I think that'll be the first effort of its kind in California and perhaps throughout the United States. So hopefully that'll be pending in the next couple weeks.
That would make a great news story, by the way. And for everyone that's working on the census, maybe some of us organizers can also connect afterwards to talk about some of that outreach. It would be nice to get a series of stories in the paper, and little things like that, I think, could help carry the message.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
Turn this on.
On the bottom, Fernando.
All right. So most of you have asked me, hey, what can we do? All right. How can we support? How can we do something? All right. So just one more minute. 3 actions that can happen. So Saturday, March 28th, we want to celebrate, we want to honor the community of the Canal, the result of all these 8 months of education, right? We want to celebrate, we want to party big time, that we learn what the census is all about, that we are aware about the importance of it, all right? And that we are definitely excited to start responding to the census that same day. This is an event where we want all the community, and understanding the community as itself, all right? All of us, we're a community. So it's going to be nonprofit organizations. It's going to be the local government. It's going to be the city of San Rafael. We're involving the local businesses as well, and of course the residents of the Canal. So we all together can start responding to the census in a very Latino way, big party, music, food, and family, all right? Well, that's one thing. Second thing, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, right? So we want to do something and reach out all the heart to Count community. We receive a bunch of flyers of printed materials in Arabic, in Chinese, in Japanese, in Korean, all right, that we haven't got the capacity to hand out. So the challenge is for each one of you to pick up material that is out there and hand it out in any sort of space that you know that these Asian communities actually reunite. So the importance of the census can also be shared with them in their native languages, okay? And third thing, right? So we definitely need bilingual volunteers. So there's a flyer out there in the table with a volunteer opportunity for Canal Alliance, partnering with PSP and the community clinic as well, all right? Well, we definitely need more bilingual volunteers to keep on educating and overall to help us on arranging the questionnaire assistance centers. And that's it. Muchas gracias.
Fabulous. Phew. Okay, that was a lot. I'm good. Good. Big day. Thank you all for your patience. If there's any final questions, we'll take it. But otherwise, we'll continue to share this information. Again, Canal Alliance and Community Action Marin and First 5 Marin will be sharing these dates. To remind you, we have infographics we'll be sharing several times a week in English and Spanish that can be shared online. And again, please take as many materials as you would like for your communities. If you find later that you have an event and you would like big sets of handouts, please just contact one of us and we'll make sure you get covered. Thank you. Oh, one more question from Karen. Karen.
Thank you. Since I mentioned trauma-informed practices when we're doing this, and it's been repeated by several different people, if there's anyone that wants any materials or wants anything that's really quick to read or a video or anything like that, please feel free to contact me. And it's real easy, kallen@marinschools.org. That's my email. And I'm happy to send you whatever you might need, even if it's just a tips guide of how do you do something through a trauma-informed lens. If you need any of that to be able to give to others, please feel free to contact me.